With the Pac-12 championship coming up tomorrow, I'm going to give you my take as an analyst, former quarterback, and former player. It's coming up right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Elite Athletes TV. I'm Mike Pulaski, former 11-year quarterback and quarterbacks coach here at Elite Athletes TV. I am also a college football analyst, and so I want to talk to you about the Pac-12 championship coming up this week. Before we get started, if you haven't done it yet, if you love football content, make sure you smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, get notified every time we have new stuff coming out. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to talk Pac-12 championship, and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Obviously, this has been a strange season. COVID, game cancellations, playing in the conference, everything going on in the Pac-12 and around the country for that matter. The Pac-12 has finally come into its championship game. It's not what you expected. Washington, who's had a couple games canceled this season, had the best winning percentage in the North and was kind of the de facto champion because everybody didn't get to play. And so they were supposed to be in the championship game for the North. However, Washington had issues in terms of a positive test and contact tracing, so they can't play. Oregon steps in to fill that spot. I think a Washington SC matchup would have been a better matchup than SC versus Oregon. Washington matches up better in terms of lines. Offensive line, defensive line, I think as a whole are better. SC really strong in the offensive and defensive lines. And so it would have been a better match in terms of game. Washington plays different coverages. They mix it up. It's a different look. They'll man you sometimes. They'll zone you sometimes and make it muddy for a quarterback. Oregon, because they had guys opt out, because they don't have the same personnel that was slated to be there for them, is more of a cover three team, more of a zone team, which is a good matchup for an air raid team like USC. So all that said, let's go over the numbers. Both these teams come into the Pac-12 championship averaging in the mid-30s in terms of points. Oregon comes in at 34.2. SC comes in at 35. Oregon, in Tyler Shough, has had a good showing at that quarterback position, getting about 278 yards passing per game and not running as effectively as you thought they would coming in. CJ Verdel was obviously the star back coming in, and he was a guy who had high expectations for this season. Well, he's averaging just over 4 yards a carry and is averaging about 57 yards a game. Travis Dye, now, who is the home run hitter at that back position, is running for 67 yards a game and over 7 yards a carry. And so the 1-2 punch has been good for them up there. Verdel kind of underperforming, but Travis Dye definitely overperforming. Oregon's offense overall has been pretty good, about 467 yards per game total offense, which is really good. SC, shockingly, has not been able to run the football. They're averaging just over 100 yards per game, I think 109 yards per game. And so that is odd for a USC team. But with Graham Harrell as the offensive coordinator, they're running the air raid. That's kind of the fallback for air raid guys, is throw first, establish the run later. USC, great tradition of running the football, they're not doing it this year. So it's been on Kedon Slovis's back. And if I had to count on a quarterback to carry my team on his back in the Pac-12, it would definitely be Kedon Slovis. He's averaging 319 yards per game. His last 2 games, he's thrown 5 touchdowns. Now, he wasn't great in the beginning of the UCLA game, but he finished strong. And that's been his key point this year all year long, is finishing strong and winning games for that offense. Kedon Slovis is the X factor in this game as a quarterback, and so I think he gives SC the greatest chance. I'm a guy who said my whole career, stats don't matter, because in-game, defenses, offenses are going to do different things depending on the opposition they face. The 2 stats that always matter is turnover ratio and sacks. Coming into the season, I talked about Oregon, and I didn't understand why they were being ranked so high, because they had 5 new dudes on the offensive line. They had 1 start on that offensive line coming into the season. And all the Oregon fans told me I was crazy. It's going to be a great group up front. Well, they've been shaky up front. They've run the ball decently. They've thrown the ball decently, but they've also been spotty at times up front. And so the offensive line versus USC's defensive line is definitely a disadvantage. USC comes into this game on defense with 13 sacks. That's in 5 games. So they've been really good at getting after the quarterback this year. They have some dudes, and not just one dude, but they have dudes across the board, several guys with 2 or more sacks. And so they can get after the passer. I think that's going to be a problem for Tyler Shough. Oregon has only gotten 8 sacks on the season. Now, they've got some dudes up front too, but it's 2 dudes. And it's Kayvon Thibodeau, who's been good. He's got 2 sacks so far this season. And it's Jordan Scott. Now, Jordan Scott has not been the player this year that he's been in years past. For whatever reason, he's just hasn't had the same effect in terms of changing offenses. And so I think the advantage goes to USC's offensive line. If you give the advantage to USC's defensive line and you give the advantage to USC's offensive line, the game of football is won and lost in the trenches. Giving the advantage up front on both sides of the ball to USC means they have a much better chance of winning this football game. The other big stat that matters is turnover ratio. That's turnover to takeaway. So Oregon has turned the ball over 11 times on the season. 7 fumbles lost out of 8 and 4 interceptions. They've only taken the ball away 4 times. 2 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions. They're -7 on the season in terms of turnover takeaway ratio in 5 games. Now, they've gotten away with 3 wins in spite of that, but they're -7. That's a huge number. USC, on the other hand, is +7 in the turnover takeaway ratio. They have 8 interceptions and 7 fumble recoveries. Meanwhile, they've only thrown 4 interceptions and given away 4 fumbles. And so when you put together the fact that USC has the advantage in sacks with 13 and the fact that USC is 14 better than Oregon is in the turnover takeaway, being that Oregon's at -7, USC is at +7, and they win up front on the offensive and defensive line, I think USC has a really good chance of winning this football game. Add to that, they have a matchup problem. Oregon, across the board in the secondary, cannot match up with USC's wide receivers. They have 3 dudes at USC that can go get it, and 2 more behind them that if one of those 3 goes down, can also go get it. But you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is the home run hitter, the big play guy. You look at Tyler Vaughns, who is slippery, can get open, makes great catches. And then my favorite, Drake London, who is just a mismatch nightmare in the middle of the field. Oregon cannot match up. Now, Oregon has good receivers. They have Johnny Johnson III, who's been very good for them. They also have Jalen Redd, who is a big play guy for Oregon as well. But USC's secondary can match up a lot better with Oregon's receivers than Oregon's secondary can match up with USC's receiver. So SC wins in the trenches, they win in the turnovers, and they win in the mismatch department. The fact that Oregon is so young, 74% underclassmen, in a big game like this, that's going to matter. The only thing on Oregon's side is SC has won cliffhangers this year. They've kind of waited around until the 4th quarter to put the game away. But if SC gets up early, they can win this one going away. My prediction for this game, SC wins this thing going away. It's going to be 42-21, and they win the Pac-12 championship. Now, is that enough to get them to the college football playoff? Who knows? I mean, it would have to be such an impressive win in the end that they impress everybody across the board. Then you'd have to have Notre Dame beat Clemson again, so Clemson with 2 losses gets knocked out, and have to do it convincingly because the voters are in love with Clemson. And then you'd probably have to have Northwestern beat Ohio State as well. So you have to have a bunch of dominoes fall. SC has to play really well and be impressive. Again, my prediction, 42-21. USC wins it, Pac-12 champs, and no college football playoff. But that's my opinion. That's the way I see this game stacking up. I would love to hear your opinion, so give me a comment down below. Remember, give me a thumbs up if you like this review. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Get notified every time we have new stuff coming out. I appreciate you watching. A little college football preview for you, a little Pac-12 action. Look forward to seeing the game tomorrow, and I'll talk to you soon.